is Natalie Kropf.
And I am Cassidy Devlin.
And we are Barbaric Workshop.
And we're married.
Barbaric Yawp Workshop.
And we're married.
Let's try again. My name is Natalie Kropf.
My name is Cassidy Devlin. We're married and
we are Barbaric Yawp Workshop.
We're Mount Airy residents. We're just about a block and a half away from Quintessence.
And we are making the masks for Antony and Cleopatra.
And for Midsummer Night's Dream. Ever since we moved to this neighborhood, we're just about a block and a half away behind the theater. And
we met Alex Burns, the artistic director. We met his aunt at some local market and started chatting, and that was sort of how the connection was made.
Yeah, then we did masks for Kira Troy and crowns, and he's continued to sort of challenge us and give us harder and harder tasks to accomplish.
Yeah, and the masks we made for Antony and Cleopatra, I think, are definitely the biggest masks we've made yet for Quintessence. In the beginning stages of the process for a show, the first thing that we do is we meet up with Alex, and usually with whoever is designing the costumes as well, since we're sort of, parallel with them in terms of design.
We usually have some strong ideas that we come in with, and we sort of see what Alex is envisioning, and then...
Alex always has very strong ideas too, so...
But the best thing about working with Alex is that he... when it comes to all of the artists that he gathers and sort of assembles, he has a lot of trust in the work that they do. So he has the idea of a vision, but he really allows us the sort of creative freedom to explore and to bring that to life, to sort of match the utility of the mask, but also the artistic expression of the mask. And it's been wonderful working with him in that way.
It's been very challenging in an exciting way. A mask is first and foremost an actor's tool. And so the design is always based on how an actor can use it to help create their character, how it will fit on their faces.
Specifically, we come from a theatrical lineage of mask making. Yeah. So whereas some people make masks to hide or conceal, the main focus, at least in the philosophy of like a commedia mask, is that a mask should transform and reveal as much as possible. So there's always a balance of the utility of a mask. It needs to be lightweight enough, it needs to be flexible enough and durable enough for a performance. An actor needs to be able to see. There's always things like sight lines, speaking, communication. Do they need to dance in it? And so it's a matter of balance, but it's kind of the challenge of how you can adapt something into a mask. It's really fun, and especially with a show like Antony and Cleopatra. We're working with Egyptian motifs that people really think of as hieroglyphics, two-dimensional, right?
Two-dimensional and in profile. So we had to translate that into three-dimensional and head-on, as well as profile, just 3D in general.
So those are really fun challenges, and sometimes we don't even know. It's a matter of sort of learning and exploring as it comes with the initial sculpt and the creative process.
And I think that the limitations are what makes it fun. I feel that way as an actor too, that the more limitations I have, the more I can really dive into the direction that I am going in, if that makes sense.
I think, wearing a mask in performance it's a very different type of acting.
Yes.
And it's a very different type of acting to experience. It's a different type of performance. But the thing is, in what I've noticed, sort of working with masks for decades and the mask work, the theater that we've created together, is that the interesting thing about masks is that all cultures, no matter how isolated they are, no matter what time they are, when they create myth, when they create story, they create mask as well. And so every single culture across the world, all throughout time, there is their own unique style and type of mask. So there is something innate about mask making, about wearing masks to tell and communicate these stories. And people seemed programmed to understand this type of storytelling. So it's a really communal and ancient way to tell a story. And as an actor wearing a mask, it's a very different proposal as well. It's exhausting is the first thing, because you are in a way a conduit to an archetype, and to summon that archetype. What they used to say in like physical theater school is you need to meet the proposal of the mask. And so generally a mask, it has a level of high opera expression or emotion, and so physically, vocally, energetically, you need to match the proposal of the mask, and actors generally find it's very exhausting, but it can be very rewarding as well.
A mask doesn't allow you to lie, and that is a wonderful thing, but also an exhausting thing as an actor. You can't hide behind tricks that you usually have. You just really need to live in it.
So we brought some of the masks that we're working on for Antony and Cleopatra and for Midsummer Night's Dream. We have here is Horace. So this is, again, probably the most difficult and detailed mask we've ever made so far, mostly from my wife, Natalie. The amount of colors, the amount of detailing that it takes.
I do the painting, and he does the sculpting.
So the initial sculpt was huge. Just in terms of casting, it took a lot of time. The masks that we're used to making are usually much smaller, so this was a real interesting challenge. But I'm really proud with how it came out. These are a little different. Usually the masks that we make, we don't have eyes sculpted in them. When the eyes are sculpted in them, it's a little bit different. Because these characters are gods, we had this discussion with the director, Alex, that we wanted them to feel less human and a little bit more alien or hard to connect with. And so in a way, you'll see sort of what these eyes do.
So because you can't see the actor's eyes through the mask, you can't really connect with the character, and it becomes very alien.
We designed it specifically so that the eyes will be hidden,
Yeah.
whereas other masks, we do all of this work to make sure the eyes sort of shine through them as much as possible. This was sort of the opposite job.
And Horus, if you don't know, is the king of the gods. He's the sun god. And so he needed to have a level of regalness that really outshined this other mask that we made, which is Anubis, who is sort of
The god of mummification?
Yeah, he shepherds the spirits of the dead to the other world.
But notice she's turning away. This is one of the sort of etiquette of mask wearing, is that you always turn away because it's a very intimate moment when the character arrives.
So one of the most fun things about Anubis is these little flappy things we got here.
Yeah, this was something I was excited to work on and develop, this sort of shingling effect, because whenever you think of Anubis, you think of the long sort of draping head wrapping.
And you think of you think of him from the side, this really long snout. These are not masks for Antony and Cleopatra. These are masks for A Midsummer Night's Dream, which actually, as a play, has much more magic in it than Antony and Cleopatra does.
That's true.
However, these are not magical masks.
No.
These are mechanical masks.
The play within the play.
Yes.
And so when Alex came to us, basically the idea that we were told was, think of the Philly Mummers Parade. And this level of sort of God. Basically he said, when the people that come out and they have masks and costumes and the crowd goes, oh no. And we completely understood what he meant. And so luckily we have a pretty large repertoire of masks that we already have as part of our design. And so we had a lion, we had a moon, and we were able to take them and then just distort them and have fun with them and sort of go a little art brut with them. And so we've made the lion. And
the moon. And these are very different from our traditional lion and moon, but we just sort of thought about the play within a play and what the characters who are wearing these masks, what their role is in that play within a play. And so for the moon is over-accessorized. right? I am the moon. Here's my dog. Here's my bush. Why does the moon have so many things? But it does. And so we wanted to go really extravagant and a little creepy. So Cass added these wonderful eyelashes, and he came up with this idea of the little hanging stars, and we just wanted it really big. So our moon usually only goes to here, and we extended it way up and way down. And obviously there isn't a mouth hole, so the actor is going to have to take it on and take it off, which will add yet another accessory to the poor moon. But if you see it on, and so that's the moon, but the lion is so ferocious.
I love this. We really wanted to make him a tough little guy.
Yeah, he's a tough guy because the lion is so scary. But the actor, the character who plays the actor for the lion is not so tough. So hopefully that will make that moment in the play really fun and also really visual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I think so many of the jokes in Shakespeare's comedies do so well with extra visual humor, such as the wall.
We were really excited when Alex said he wanted a mask for the wall.
I don't know if he said he wanted a mask for it. I think we were like, can we please make you a wall mask? And he was like, okay.